Imagine if I tell you a secret. There is an ancient book that the church decided to hide because it sheds light on the origin of evil in the world. This book was quoted by the apostles in the New Testament, but subsequent councils excluded it from the official biblical canon. This book explains who the fallen angels were, why they betrayed God, and how their rebellion gave rise to the monstrous creatures that ruled the earth before the flood. I'm talking about the Book of Enoch. Before you think that this is fiction or religious fantasy, let me share with you some facts that may change your perception of it. The Apostle Judas quoted this book verbatim in his canonical epistle. Peter mentioned her indirectly. The fathers of the early church considered it sacred, and in 1947 it was discovered among the Dead Sea manuscripts in the caves of Qumran, which confirms its antiquity and authenticity. So why was it deleted? What was contained in this book that caused the church to hide it from the public eye? What made it so dangerous for the church structure? According to the surviving historical records, the Book of Enoch describes in detail what the Book of Genesis only briefly mentions in 4 verses. This is the story of the sons of God who descended to earth, mixed with the daughters of men, and gave birth to a race of giants known as the Nephilim. However, the Book of Enoch goes much further. She describes, with names, hierarchies, and specific details, who these rebellious angels were, what their secret covenant was, what forbidden knowledge they shared with humanity, and why God decided to destroy an antediluvian civilization with a flood. According to the Book of Genesis, Enoch was the only person in the entire Bible who did not die. He walked with God, the holy text says, and disappeared because God took him to himself. Enoch lived on earth for 365 years, and according to the book bearing his name, during this time he was taken to heaven several times, where he gained access to cosmic secrets, prophetic visions, and revelations about the ultimate future of mankind. He wrote it all down later. This text became widespread during the Second Temple era. He was revered by the ascends of Qumran. He was quoted by the apostles, but eventually, between the 4th and 5th centuries, he was banned by church councils. Why did this happen? Some researchers believe that the Book of Enoch questioned the structure of church authority, arguing that spiritual knowledge can be obtained directly without any institutional intermediaries. In addition, the book contains too many details about the spiritual world, the nature of angels, and the cosmic war between good and evil. Although this cosmology was compatible with the Bible, it turned out to be too detailed and specific. It was difficult to keep it under doctrinal control. Today, more than 1,700 years after the official censorship, the Book of Enoch still exists. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church includes it in its canon to this day. The Qumran manuscripts have confirmed its antiquity, and millions of people around the world are rediscovering a text that was deliberately hidden from humanity. In this video, you will learn not about conspiracy theories, but about real historical, archaeological, and theological evidence regarding one of the most controversial and censored books in the history of religion. At the end of our journey, you will be able to understand for yourself why this text was considered so dangerous that it had to be removed from wide distribution. Because what is written in the Book of Enoch changes our understanding of good and evil, angels and demons, as well as how evil actually arose in the world. According to Genesis, chapter 5, verses 21 to 24, the 7th patriarch of Adam lived for 365 years, and the biblical text speaks of something truly significant. Enoch was an unusual character, unlike the others. He walked next to God and disappeared because he was taken to heaven. He did not die, but was moved. The Epistle to the Hebrews, chapter 11, verse 5, confirms this. By faith, Enoch was carried away so that he would not see death, and he was no more on earth because God had carried him away. This is the only direct mention of Enoch in the New Testament. Only 5 verses. However, in his canonical epistle, the Apostle Judas does something amazing. In verses 14 and 15, he quotes the prophecy of Enoch verbatim, which is not found in any official Old Testament book. In this prophecy, Enoch, the 7th from Adam, says, "Behold, the Lord is coming with thousands of his holy angels to execute judgment on all." This quote is taken directly from the book of Enoch, chapter 1, verses 9 and 10. This means that Judas not only knew the book of Enoch, but also considered it authoritative enough to include in his epistle. If this text is quoted in the canonical New Testament, why was it excluded from the canon centuries later? We live in an era when prophecies are coming true before our eyes, but many are still in the dark, content with only superficial truths that have been carefully hidden from humanity for centuries. Now imagine, what if the exact text that was deleted from the Holy Scriptures contains the answers you've been searching for years? Answers that can light up your path, strengthen your faith, and reveal the true purpose of Jesus' coming. Censorship. In the 4th century, the Christian Church finally banned and excluded the Book of Enoch from its canon. The official reason is theological. The book allegedly describes cosmological and angelological aspects in too much detail, which can lead to heresies. But according to researchers like Dr. James Charlesworth of Princeton University, the real reasons go deeper. The Book of John Enoch promotes the idea of direct revelation from God, without priests, temples, and church institutions as mandatory intermediaries. This was dangerous for the church, which was just strengthening its hierarchy and its role as the sole mediator between God and people. In addition, the book gives too many specific names of angels, heavenly hierarchies, divisions of hell, and mechanisms of the Last Judgment. This level of detail is almost impossible to keep under control. Ironically, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church has never abandoned the Book of Enoch. It is still included in its canon. In 1947, when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered, 11 fragmentary copies of the Book of Enoch in Aramaic were found among them. This proves that the book existed even before the birth of Jesus and was considered sacred by the Qumran Essene community. If the apostles knew this book, it means that the early Christians revered it and the Essenes jealously preserved it. But after several centuries, the institutional church decided to eliminate it. Question: why? And what was so scary about it? The canonical writings say almost nothing about her, but the surviving fragments tell about the Watchmen. This is a special class of angels that God has assigned to watch over humanity and guide it in the earliest times. 200 angels were assigned to this task, but something went wrong. In the 6th chapter of the Book of Enoch, this story is fully revealed. And in the Book of Genesis, chapter 6, verses 1 and 2, this is said only by hint. When men began to multiply on the earth, and daughters were born to them, then the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were beautiful, and took them to wife. These angels weren't just watching, they coveted earthly women and decided to descend to marry them. They understood that they were committing a cosmic crime. Therefore, as stated in verses 4 and 5 of the 6th chapter of the Book of Enoch, they made a covenant with each other. Their leader, Semyaz, said, "I am afraid that you will not give up this case, and then I alone will be punished for a great sin." But all 200 answered, "Let's take an oath and swear under a curse not to deviate from this plan." 200 angels swore an oath on Mount Hermon. The name Hermon itself comes from the Hebrew word herem, which means curse or dedication under oath. This mountain really exists to this day, on the border of Israel, Lebanon, and Syria. According to the tradition set forth in the Book of Enoch, It was there that the Guardians made an agreement to rebel. The book lists the leaders of this uprising. Their names are: Semius is the main leader. The assassin is the one who will teach people dangerous secrets. Armaros, Barakel, Kokabiel, Tamiel, Asael, and many others. Each of them commanded a group of 10 angels, and they all went together to Mount Hermon, where they married human women and had children with them. This event is not a fiction of the book of Enoch. The canonical Bible also mentions him in the 6th chapter of Genesis, verses 1 through 4. It says that when people began to multiply on earth, and they had daughters, the sons of God, seeing their beauty, married themselves, choosing the best of them. There were giants on earth in those days, and after the sons of God joined with the daughters of men and gave birth to sons, these men became known as the brave men of ancient times, people about whom legendary fame has been preserved. These children of the gods, according to the earliest interpretation preserved in Jewish and early Christian texts, the fallen angels from the book of Enoch and the mentioned giants represent the Nephilim, a hybrid offspring of angels and humans. However, in the book of Genesis, only 4 verses are devoted to this event, while in the book of Enoch, entire chapters are devoted to this issue. Why is that? The fact is that, according to the text, which was later censored, it was not just a case of moral misconduct, but the real cosmic origin of evil on Earth. It was a time when celestial beings who possessed divine knowledge deliberately corrupted human creation. It is for this reason that God decided to destroy the world with the help of a flood. Have you ever heard of the Guardians and their covenant on Mount Hermon? Tell me in the comments. I will be pleased to know that true seekers of truth like you have this knowledge. Your experience can enlighten others who are just beginning to understand these revelations. The Guardians not only communicated with humanity, but also shared secrets that, according to the book of Enoch, can open doors to a whole new world. Knowledge that should never have been available to mortals corrupted the antediluvian civilization and led to violence, dark magic, and deep spiritual distortions. Among all the fallen angels, there was one whose crime was considered the most serious: Azazel. The teachings that this angel taught humanity were so dangerous that his punishment was different from the punishments of others. He was chained and imprisoned in total darkness, surrounded by sharp stones, awaiting the last judgment. What did Azazel do that was so terrible that he deserved such a harsh punishment? And why does his name still appear in Jewish rituals? We will learn about this later, because what the Guardians committed was not just a moral crime, but a real act of spiritual warfare that forever changed the fate of humanity. The direct result of the union between the Guardians and human women was the birth of a race called the Nephilim in the Hebrew scriptures. This term comes from the Hebrew root, which means fall. Nephil is a word meaning to fall. They are literally fallen, or those who caused others to fall. According to the book of Enoch, in chapter 7, verses 1 through 6, these creatures were not just tall people, but monstrous giants whose hybrid nature made them abhorrent to both heaven and earth. The text describes that pregnant human women gave birth to these creatures, and their height was 3,000 cubits. To put this in perspective, it is worth considering that the length of the ancient elbow was about 45 centimeters. The height of 3,000 cubits was about 1,350 meters. Academic researchers consider this figure symbolic or the result of mistakes made by scribes over the centuries. Other versions of the text mention 300 cubits, which corresponds to about 135 meters. Even if we reduce this figure to more reasonable proportions, according to later sources, we are still talking about creatures from 3 to 10 meters tall, real giants. And the book of Enoch describes their depraved nature. According to chapter 7, verses 3 through 5, They devoured all the fruits of human labor until people were unable to feed them. Then the giants turned against humanity, seeking to devour it completely. They committed sins against birds, animals, reptiles, and humans by eating fish, each other's meat, and even blood. The Nephilim used all the resources of humanity, and when food became scarce, they began to eat people. According to the text, they even practiced cannibalism among themselves. This description is surprisingly consistent with the traditions preserved in ancient cultures around the world. Greek titans who devoured humans, Scandinavian giants who fought with the gods, Asuras from Hindu mythology who wreaked havoc on Earth. They all have common features: hybrid creatures of colossal size with aggressive and destructive behavior. Is there any evidence in the Bible to support this claim? Yes, I have. In the book of Numbers, in chapter 13, verse 33, the spies sent by Moses to Canaan return and tell, "We also saw the giants there, the sons of Anak, from the family of the ancient giants. In our opinion, we looked like locusts, and that's how we looked in their eyes." Anak is mentioned as a descendant of the Nephilim who somehow survived the flood. Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 11, describes the bed of the king of Bashan. This king was the last of the remaining giants, and his bed was made of iron, not wood, like that of ordinary people. His bed was 9 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. 9 cubits is about 4.5 meters long. This indicates that the height of the regional state administration was at least 3 to 3.5 meters. The biblical text explicitly identifies him as one of the last giants, confirming that there were survivors of the Nephilim race after the flood. How could they survive if the main purpose of the flood was their complete destruction? The book of Enoch offers answers to these questions. In chapter 15, verses 8 through 12, it says that when the Nephilim giants died physically, their spirits could neither ascend to heaven nor descend to the underworld like ordinary human souls. Because of their hybrid nature, they were doomed to wander the earth forever in the form of evil spirits. These spirits, according to the text, are the demons that continue to torment humanity to this day. They are not fallen angels, but the disembodied souls of dead Nephilim. Their goal is to take over people and destroy humanity because they blame us for their cursed condition. This teaching has been preserved in later Jewish texts, such as the Book of Jubilees and the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs. Some researchers of early Christianity believe that this is why Jesus constantly cast out demons. He did not fight fallen angels, but freed people from the spirits of the Nephilim, who persecuted humanity for thousands of years after the flood. But the Nephilim weren't the only legacy of the Guardians. There was another, much more serious crime committed by fallen angels. They shared forbidden knowledge that should never have reached people. This sin sealed their eternal condemnation. If the Nephilim were the physical result of the Guardians' actions, then the forbidden knowledge these angels endowed humans with became their even more destructive spiritual legacy. According to the book of Enoch, chapter 8, verses 1 through 4, each of the Guardian leaders taught people certain secrets that led to the complete decline of the antediluvian civilization. The first one mentioned was Azazel, whose teachings were considered so dangerous that the punishment turned out to be the most severe of all. The text reads, "He taught the making of swords, knives, shields, and breastplates. He showed people the metals of the earth and the art of their processing. Azazel brought organized warfare. Before their intervention, according to preserved traditions, human conflicts were primitive and rare, and after the angelic lessons of metallurgy, humanity began to produce sophisticated weapons, which led to massive wars, conquests, and bloodshed on a scale unprecedented before. However, the list does not end there. The text continues, and bracelets, and jewelry, and the use of antimony, and eyelid decoration, and all kinds of precious stones, and all colored dyes. Azazel taught cosmetology, vanity, and the art of artificial seduction. Why was it considered sinful? According to the ancient theological interpretation, this knowledge led humanity away from the natural beauty of the divine creation to superficiality, deception, and falsehood. But Azazel wasn't the only one. Semyaza taught charms, incantations, and cut-and-magic roots, that is, magic and witchcraft. Armaros taught how to remove damage and counteract other people's magic. Barakel taught astrology, reading the stars and predicting the future. Kokabiel revealed the meaning of the heavenly signs. Tamiel was an astronomy teacher who taught about the movement of stars and planets. Asradel taught the movement of the moon, calendar design, and natural cycles. If these revelations have found a response in your heart, I am happy to invite you to join our private club. Here you will find like-minded people who, like you, are not ready to settle for superficial truths. Become a member today. A fundamental theological question arises. Why was this knowledge considered forbidden? After all, many of these sciences, such as astronomy, metallurgy, and herbal medicine, are legitimate sciences developed by mankind. According to the interpreters of the Book of Enoch, the problem lies not in knowledge itself, but in three key factors. First of all, this is the moment. Humanity was not spiritually ready to receive this knowledge, and it was like giving nuclear weapons to children. Advanced knowledge without moral maturity inevitably leads to abuse and destruction. Secondly, it is an intention. The keepers shared these secrets not to help humanity, but to corrupt it. They sought to create dependence, worship, and spiritual bondage. These are the three aspects that these beings sought to establish. They wanted to be revered as gods. The source of this knowledge, according to the Book of Enoch, was the beings who rebelled against God. This knowledge was filled with evil intentions and separated humanity from its direct dependence on the Creator. The result described in the Book of Enoch was disastrous. There was much wickedness and fornication. People went astray, and all their ways were corrupted. The antediluvian civilization plunged into violence, witchcraft, idolatry, and mass sexual perversion. This, according to the text, is what caused God to intervene with the flood. But before that, there was a heavenly court. The archangels faithful to God, Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, and Uriel, raised a fuss at the divine throne. In the 9th chapter of the Book of Enoch, the archangels said, "You saw what Azazel did, how he taught all kinds of injustice on earth, and revealed the eternal mysteries that take place in heaven. And Semias, to whom you gave the power to command his comrades." The faithful angels were deeply concerned about the state of the world and called on God to pay attention to what was happening. They asked for justice, and God answered them by deciding on a trial that changed the fate of the guards forever. However, there is a disturbing connection. If the Guardians shared secret knowledge with humanity before the flood, is it possible that this knowledge survived the flood? Later civilizations may have preserved fragments of this forbidden angelic science. The Book of Enoch shows that not all knowledge was lost during the flood, that some of it has been preserved, and that the struggle between divine and forbidden knowledge continues to this day. But before we explore this question, we need to understand what happened to Enoch himself. His story doesn't end on earth. He was taken to heaven. And what he saw there, what was revealed to him about the structure of the universe, the fate of fallen angels, and the future of humanity, that's what will happen next. While humanity has been plunged into the corruption caused by the Guardians, the Nephilim have been spawned from this corruption. The Book of Enoch, chapters 14 through 22, describes Enoch's journey through heaven, where he witnessed wonders and horrors beyond the comprehension of other mortals. Chapter 14 begins with a vision that Enoch had. "And behold, clouds and mist appeared in the vision, and stars and lightning pushed and pressed on me. And in the vision, the winds made me fly, lifted me up, and carried me into the sky. Enoch found himself outside the physical earth, and the first thing he saw was a huge structure in heaven, a monastery built of hailstones. The walls of this building shone like crystal, and the floor was dazzlingly bright. According to the text, the heavenly house was of incredible size. His gate was so high that it could pass through the clouds. The interior of the monastery was shrouded in fire and ice at the same time, and inside it was an even more majestic and beautiful house. In chapter 14, verses 18 through 20, Enoch describes what he saw inside the house. And I saw a high throne surrounded by many angels, and above the throne was a shining throne. The throne looked like ice, and its wheels shone like a bright sun. Rivers of flaming fire poured out from under the great throne, and it was unbearable to look at it. Enoch saw on this throne a figure that he did not dare to fully describe, but he was overwhelmed by the great glory sitting on it. No angel could enter and see the face of the glorious and magnificent, and no creature of flesh could look at him. This vision echoes Ezekiel's descriptions in his canonical prophecy, chapter 1, where he also describes a divine throne with fiery wheels and heavenly beings. However, the book of Enoch goes further, describing not only what Enoch saw, but also what was revealed to him. God spoke to him directly. In chapter 15, he explained to him the true nature of the guardians and their transgression. Why did you guys leave the high, holy, and eternal heaven and sleep with women, and you have produced giants as sons? The divine response confirmed that the guardians who violated the cosmic order were created as eternal spirits that do not need to reproduce. However, by acquiring bodies and mixing with humans, they perverted both their own nature and humanity's creation. But Enoch's vision led him on a journey to other heavenly places. According to chapters 17 through 19, he saw a place of eternal fire where rebellious spirits would be tormented forever. Prisons of fallen angels in dark valleys underground awaiting the last judgment, storehouses of winds that control the weather on earth, treasures of snow and hail stored for Judgment Day, and, even more shocking, Sheol, the place of the dead. According to chapter 22, Enoch saw that Sheol was divided into 4 compartments. One is for the righteous, who will be rewarded for their good deeds. The other is for sinners, who will be punished for their evil deeds. In anticipation of the resurrection, the spirit world was divided into 3 parts. One of them was intended for ordinary sinners who languished in darkness, another for martyrs who cried out for justice, and the third for the wicked, who were to be completely destroyed at the last judgment. This cosmology of the afterlife had a significant impact on Second Temple Judaism and early Christianity. Jesus' parable of the rich man and Lazarus in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 16, reflects this division of Sheol. Paul's theology about the resurrection and the intermediate state also echoes the book of Enoch. However, the most important thing in Enoch's vision is that it was revealed to him about the future. God not only showed him the current state of the cosmos, but also revealed prophecies about the final fate of all things. And these prophecies, according to the text, are beginning to be fulfilled precisely in our days. But before we get to them, we need to understand what happened to the guardians. After all, after Enoch saw the throne of God, he was endowed with a special mission: the message of judgment for the fallen angels. After Enoch witnessed the greatness of God's throne and the beauty of the heavenly cosmos, he was entrusted with an amazing and terrifying mission: to bring the news of the coming judgment to the fallen angels. It was a punishment that surpassed all descriptions of hell found in the canonical Bible. According to the book of Enoch, in chapter 13, the rebellious angels, realizing their sins and fearing the manifestation of divine wrath, asked Enoch to intercede for them before God. In response to their pleas, Enoch went to Azazel and pronounced a harsh sentence. "You will not have peace. A harsh sentence has been passed against you. They will bind you, and you will find neither peace nor intercession." Azazel, the angel who taught war and vanity, will be chained in the desert. In chapter 10, verses 4 through 6, God commanded the archangel Raphael to bind Azazel hand and foot and throw him into darkness. "Open the desert that is in Dudael and throw it there. Put rough and sharp stones on it and cover it with darkness," God ordered. Azazel was buried alive in a place shrouded in darkness and covered with sharp stones, awaiting the day of judgment when eternal torment awaited him in the fire. This tradition is reflected in Judaism. The book of Leviticus describes a ritual performed on the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. During this ritual, 2 goats were chosen. One was sacrificed to God, and the other, known as the scapegoat, went to the desert to Azazel, symbolizing the forgiveness of the sins of the people. This Jewish rite preserves the memory that Azazel was imprisoned in the desert and is considered the culprit of sin. However, the trial of Azazel was not completed. According to chapter 10, verses 11 through 14, God commanded Archangel Michael, "Go and bind Semyaza and his companions who have joined forces with women. Bind them for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth until the day of their judgment and completion." 70 generations. If we accept the biblical standard, according to which a generation is 40 years old, then we are talking about 2,800 years. However, some interpreters believe that this number may be conditional and may not relate to a specific time period. It is believed that the number 70 generations symbolizes the time before the end of the world. According to the text, the guards were chained in underground prisons, where they were kept in total darkness awaiting the last judgment. According to the text, they are still imprisoned. Where are you watching this video from? I am glad to learn that these truths are reaching thirsty souls all over the world. Please specify your country or city. Let's create a global network of truth seekers. But what happened to the Nephilim, those giant sons of the Guardians? According to chapter 10, verses 9 and 10, God commanded the archangel Gabriel to take action against the wicked and depraved children of fornication, as well as to destroy the children of the Guardians from among the people. He ordered them to be set against each other so that they would die in a fratricidal massacre. That's how the Nephilim self-destructed in the bloody wars before the flood. However, as we have already said, when their bodies died, something really disturbing happened. Because of their hybrid nature, their spirits could neither go where ordinary human souls go, nor return to heaven as angels. They were trapped on earth forever. And according to chapter 15, verses 8 through 12, these spirits became demons that still torment humanity. From now on, giants born of spirit and flesh will be called evil spirits on earth. The earth will become their haven. Evil spirits will emanate from their bodies. This is how the book of Enoch explains the origin of demons. They are not fallen angels, but disembodied Nephilim entities whose sole purpose is to corrupt, capture, and destroy humans. This teaching was later reflected in other Jewish texts, such as the Book of Jubilees, where it says, "And evil spirits began to mislead, corrupt, and destroy the sons of men." According to the Jubilees, chapter 10, verse 5, Noah prayed to God, asking him to bind these spirits because after the flood they continued to torment his descendants. In response, the Lord ordered 9/10 of all demons to be bound, but left 1/10 free to test and tempt the righteous until the end of time. This explains why Jesus so often cast out demons in the Gospels. These were not fallen angels from heaven, but the spirits of the Nephilim, the same spirits that have been roaming the earth for thousands of years after the flood. The second epistle of Peter, chapter 2, verse 4, confirms, God did not spare the angels who sinned, but having bound them with the bonds of the darkness of hell, he betrayed them so that they could be held for judgment. Jude, verse 6, adds, and the angels who have not preserved their dignity, but have forsaken their dwelling, he keeps in eternal bonds under darkness for the judgment of the great day. The canonical Bible confirms this idea, although it does not reveal all the details that are in the book of Enoch. But now, the most inconvenient question. If all this is true, if the early Christians knew this book, if the apostles quoted it, why did the church ban it? We went through the contents of the book of Enoch, analyzed what it says about fallen angels, Nephilim, the origin of demons, and the coming judgment. Now is the time to ask the main question. If this book was revered by Jews from the time of the Second Temple, if it was quoted by the apostles and considered sacred by the early Christians, why was it left out of the canon? Why was the book of Enoch excluded from the official Bible? The answer lies in several dimensions at once: historical, theological, and political. The first layer is the council in Laodicea, which took place in the 364th year of our Lord. It was one of the first cathedrals to attempt to compile a definitive list of canonical books. In the 60th canon, the council banned the public reading of any non-canonical texts in churches. The book of Enoch, along with other apocrypha, was not included in this list. The official reason is that it is allegedly impossible to reliably prove that it was written by Enoch himself. However, this argument is strange. After all, the authorship of many books of the Old Testament is also impossible to prove. The Pentateuch is attributed to Moses, but scholars have long been talking about a multitude of editors. The Psalms are attributed to David, but many were written centuries later. Why was the criterion of authorship applied only to Enoch? The second layer is the control over teaching. Scholars such as Dr. James Charlesworth of Princeton, who has studied pseudepigraphy for decades, believe that the Book of Enoch posed a serious threat to the institutional church of the 4th and 5th centuries. Enoch received revelations directly, without priests or a temple. In an era when the church was building a rigid hierarchy and declaring itself the only mediator between God and man, it was dangerous. If everyone can ascend like Enoch and receive knowledge directly, then why bishops and cathedrals? In addition, the Book of Enoch gave too many details about the spiritual world: 200 named fallen angels, the exact geography of hell, the mechanisms of judgment, astronomical mysteries. It was impossible to keep such specific knowledge in sacred uncertainty, and this allowed the church to maintain a monopoly on interpretation. The third layer is the Tridentine Cathedral. In the years 1546 and 1563, against the background of the Reformation, the Catholic Church finally consolidated its canon. The Book of Enoch was not included in it, among other things because it was not in the Palestinian Jewish canon and because its complex angelology could give rise to heresies. At the same time, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church has never rejected it. For Ethiopians, the Book of Enoch is still a part of the Bible. They read it at liturgies, teach it in seminaries, and put it on a par with Genesis and the Gospels. It turns out that the African tradition, continuous for almost 2,000 years, has preserved what Europe rejected. The fourth layer is the discovery at Qumran. In 1947, scrolls were found in caves near the Dead Sea. Among them are 11 fragments of the Book of Enoch, dated to the 3rd century BC. The the 1st century AD. This proved two things. The book existed long before Christ and was one of the most widely read in the community from which John the Baptist probably came. After the Pentateuch and the Psalms, Enoch was copied most often, and yet, centuries later, the official church and modern biblical scholars call it a pseudepigrapha, that is, attributed to the ancient name. But the question remains open. Who has the right to decide whether the Word of God is a council in 4th century Europe or a living tradition that has preserved the text for 2,000 years in a row? However, this does not detract from its historical value and undeniable influence on Second Temple Judaism and early Christianity. The study of these texts is crucial for understanding the religious context in which Christianity originated. According to analysts such as La Drotra and Margaret Barker, a Methodist theologian and specialist in early Christianity, the real reason for the rejection of the Book of Enoch was that it preserved the traditions of Judaism at that time associated with the First Temple, traditions that later Orthodoxy sought to completely eradicate. These traditions included the belief in many divine beings sitting on the heavenly council, the role of angels as messengers of knowledge, the idea of the Messiah as a pre-existing and cosmic figure, as well as the possibility of heavenly ascension and mystical revelations. All this proved inconvenient for the Church, which was striving for strict doctrinal uniformity. Institutional control gradually pushed the Book of Enoch to the periphery, making it forbidden and almost forgotten, with the exception of Ethiopia and those few who for centuries persistently searched for truths deliberately hidden from the majority. However, the Book of Enoch is full of prophecies about the future, and this makes them especially disturbing, since many of them seem to be coming true in our time. The Book of Enoch, which tells about the antediluvian past, is at the same time prophetic. It contains visions about the future of mankind and the ultimate fate of the cosmos. And the most disturbing thing is that some of these prophecies seem to be coming true right before the eyes of our generation. The most famous prophecy from the Book of Enoch was quoted by Judas in his canonical epistle. It says, "Behold, the Lord has come with his holy tens of thousands to judge all and condemn all the wicked for all their wicked deeds that they have committed." The Book of Enoch contains prophecies about the second coming and the last judgment. But, in addition, it includes more specific predictions about the events that immediately precede this trial. Weekly Apocalypse. In chapters 90, 1 to 93, Enoch divides the entire history of mankind into 10 prophetic weeks. Each week symbolizes a separate historical period. According to this division, the first week covers the time from Adam to Enoch. The second, the era of Enoch, Noah, and the flood. The third, the period from Noah to Abraham. The fourth, from Abraham to Moses and the adoption of the law. The fifth, from Moses to the Temple of Solomon. The sixth, from Solomon to the destruction of the temple and the Babylonian exile. The seventh, from the exile to the time of Enoch himself, when the book was written. And now the eighth period begins, a truly prophetic one. At the end of the eighth week, the house of the kingdom will rise up, and sinners will be delivered into the hands of the righteous. Many interpreters associate this with the emergence of early Christianity and the spread of the gospel throughout the world. The ninth week. This week, the righteous judgment will open before the whole world, and all the deeds of the wicked will disappear forever. This period will mark the massive disclosure of hidden truths. Secrets that have been hidden for centuries will become public knowledge. The injustice will be publicly exposed in front of everyone. It is in our era, with the discovery of the Dead Sea manuscripts and the Nag Hammadi codices, as well as thanks to the internet, which has opened access to previously classified information, that we are witnessing an unprecedented disclosure of ancient texts and teachings that were once heavily censored. Never before in the history of mankind have so many ordinary people had direct access to ancient documents, scientific translations, and knowledge that used to be the privilege of only religious elites. This is the very revelation of righteous judgment to the whole world that Enoch prophesied about. 10th week. This period marks the great and eternal judgment. The first sky will disappear completely, and a new sky will appear. This is how the final completion of the old order is described. Celestial omens and natural disasters have long ceased to be something out of the ordinary. However, there is another prophecy in the book of Enoch that is causing particular concern right now. In chapter 80, verses 2 through 8, we read, "Heaven is on trial. In the days of sinners, the years will be shortened. The rain will stop, and the sky will disappear, and the fruits of the earth will not grow in their season, and the stars of heaven will come out of their orbits." This passage describes dramatic climate changes, natural disasters, and real astronomical chaos. Many people today see direct parallels with modern climate change, the increasingly frequent extreme weather events, and global environmental instability that we are witnessing right now. Prolonged droughts in once fertile regions, catastrophic floods in historically arid areas, and record-breaking temperatures year after year. Modern science only confirms these alarming trends. She explains this as a result of human activity and global warming. However, the Book of Enoch, written more than 2,300 years ago, describes all this as a clear sign of recent times, global conflicts, and the emergence of the kings of the East. Chapter 56 describes the vision of the last days. The great kings of the nations and the East will come, who will rise up against the chosen of the Lord, and the earth will be filled with blood. This prophecy of global conflicts between nations surprisingly resonates with the current geopolitical tensions. Never before in the history of mankind have we had a nuclear and technological arsenal capable of destroying all life on the planet in a matter of hours. Tensions between superpowers, regional conflicts that could escalate into global ones at any moment, and an arms race that continues even despite peace treaties. All this is directly reflected in the warnings of the Book of Enoch about the last days and the spiritual awakening of the elect. But more importantly, the Book of Enoch speaks of a generation that will see these signs and awaken spiritually. The Book of Revelation is imbued with the same spirituality. In chapter 1, verse 2, it reads, "One word about the elect, for the righteous and the chosen who will be present in the day of tribulation." And in chapter 108, there is a promise. "In those days, the elect and the saints will descend from heaven, and their seed will be united with the sons of men." The text clearly hints, at the end of time, the elect and the saints will live among men. Their seed will merge with the human world. This generation will rediscover hidden truths and spiritually awaken, despite the massive apostasy around them. And we are witnessing exactly this phenomenon. Millions of people around the world today are questioning official religious dogmas, independently researching ancient texts, and discovering that crucial information has been hidden from them for centuries. They are experiencing a real spiritual awakening, not from institutions, but from within themselves. Personal revelation and a sincere search for the truth are what drives these people. They do not just follow faith, but deepen it, getting rid of layers of institutional manipulation in order to achieve a genuine spiritual essence. can we say that this is the fulfillment of Enoch's prophecy? I cannot give a definite answer, but I can say with confidence that the Book of Enoch, written more than 2,300 years ago, describes with frightening accuracy the events taking place in our generation. The massive disclosure of ancient secrets, unprecedented climate and natural crises, global tensions threatening total war, and the spiritual awakening of millions of people seeking the truth beyond traditional institutions. All this we are witnessing right now. If the prophecies of the Book of Enoch are indeed being fulfilled before our eyes, then what does this mean for the final prophecy of judgment and the complete transformation of the world? Everyone should find their own answer to this question. Before we move on to the finale, let's look at one more connection, a connection that will completely change our understanding of Christ's teachings. This is a direct, almost unbelievable connection between the Book of Enoch and Jesus of Nazareth. The Book of Enoch had a significant impact on the traditions of many ancient civilizations. In Islam, she is associated with the prophet Idris, who is mentioned in the Quran, Surah 19, verse 567. This surah says, "He was a truthful man, a prophet, and we raised him to a high place." Islamic scholars identify Idris with Enoch. According to Islamic lore, Idris was the first person to write with a pen. He taught astronomy and mathematics and was taken alive to heaven without tasting death. These features perfectly match the image of Enoch and are surprisingly reminiscent of Hermes Trismegistus and his legendary disciple. In the Western Hermetic tradition, there is a figure named Hermes Trismegistus, who is considered the founder of alchemy and astrology, a sage who lived before the flood. He preserved his knowledge by writing it down on stone pillars so that they would survive the disaster. Many researchers have long noted that Hermes and Enoch are essentially the same archetypal figure. Both were sages of the antediluvian world who received heavenly revelations on astronomy and cosmology. Both were taken to heaven alive, and both left behind books of wisdom that survived the flood. In the Egyptian tradition, Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing, the scribe of the gods, and the keeper of the most intimate secret knowledge, performs exactly the same role. The ancient Greeks associated Thoth with Hermes, and some Christian Goths identified them with Enoch. In world mythologies, there are often references to advanced civilizations that existed before the Great Flood. The sages of those times preserved their knowledge in stone or in secret texts so that they would not be lost forever. The Jewish historian Josephus writes that before the flood, the descendants of Seth wrote down their astronomical knowledge on 2 stone pillars so that they would not be destroyed by water or fire. Perhaps the Book of Enoch preserves the historical memory of that advanced civilization. We cannot fully confirm this hypothesis, but it cannot be denied. The legacy of Enoch is manifested in many world traditions, and each of them points to ancient, powerful, and intentionally hidden knowledge. However, there is a more direct and truly amazing connection between the books of Enoch and Jesus of Nazareth. One of the most important questions that arises after studying this book is, did Jesus know this text? And if so, what exactly could he have known from it? Did Jesus know Enoch, and did this influence his teaching? The answer, according to the evidence preserved in the canonical Gospels, is unequivocal: yes. Jesus often referred to himself as the Son of Man, and this name appears more than 80 times in the Gospels. This was the most common title that Jesus used to identify himself. He was more than just the Son of God, more than the Messiah, more than the Christ. But where did this unusual name come from? In the Book of Enoch, especially in the section known as the Proverbs of Enoch, beginning in chapter 37, a messianic figure appears, repeatedly referred to as the Son of Man. In chapter 46, verses 1 through 4, it is described, "And there I saw one who was more ancient than days, and his head was white as wool. There was another with him, whose face had a human form, and his face was full of grace, like that of one of the holy angels. And I asked the angel who was with me, "Who is it?" And he answered me, "This is the Son of Man." The book of Enoch speaks of the Son of Man, to whom righteousness belongs, and with whom righteousness abides. The text also describes that this Son of Man existed before the creation of the world, and will judge all mankind on the last day. He will overthrow kings and the powerful, and establish an eternal kingdom of justice. All of these characteristics are completely identical to what Jesus taught about himself in the Gospels. When Jesus uses this title, he is not inventing a new concept. He is directly identifying himself with the messianic figure described in the book of Enoch. His first-century Jewish audience, who were well acquainted with the book of Enoch, immediately understood the significance of this self-identification. Parables and general teachings. Jesus often used parables to teach, and some of his parables have direct parallels in the book of Enoch. In Matthew chapter 25, Jesus describes the last judgment, in which the Son of Man will separate the sheep from the goats, sitting on the throne of his glory. The book of Enoch, chapter 62, verse 5 says, "And when they see this Son of Man sitting on the throne of his glory, and the righteous and the elect stand before him, then they will be seized with great fear." The similarity is obvious. In Matthew chapter 19, verse 28, Jesus promises his disciples, "Verily I say unto you, when the Son of Man shall sit on the throne of his glory, you who have followed me will also sit on 12 thrones to judge the 12 tribes of Israel." The book of Enoch, chapter 108, verse 12, says, "And the righteous shall be in the light of the sun, and the elect in the light of eternal life. And their garments shall be in the rays of the sun. They will be clothed in the robes of glory." Jesus and demons. A new perspective. When we read the Gospels in the context of the book of Enoch, Jesus' exorcism takes on a much deeper meaning. It is recorded in the Gospels that Jesus constantly cast out demons. In Mark, almost half of Jesus' entire ministry is related to resisting evil spirits. Why? According to the book of Enoch, demons are not fallen angels, but disembodied Nephilim spirits who wander the earth, causing suffering to humanity. Jesus, as the Son of Man, predicted that he would appreciate the works of the guardians and free humanity from the oppression of the Nephilim spirits. When Jesus cast out demons, he was fulfilling Enoch's prophecy about cleansing the earth of the defilement caused by fallen angels, the transfiguration and ascension of Enoch. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 17, describes the transfiguration of Jesus when he appeared before the disciples surrounded by Moses and Elijah. Surprisingly, Jesus was surrounded by two figures from the Old Testament who, according to Jewish tradition, survived the heavenly ascension without death. Elijah was taken to heaven in a chariot of fire, as it says in the second book of Kings, chapter 2, verse 11. Moses, according to extra-biblical Jewish traditions, also performed a similar ascension to heaven. However, there is another figure from the Old Testament who is supposed to have been taken to heaven alive without seeing death. This is Enoch. Some scholars believe that the absence of Enoch's figure in the transfiguration scene is due to the fact that his book has become considered marginal. The authors of the Gospels tried not to mention Enoch directly so as not to come into conflict with the religious authorities of their time. However, his influence on the teachings of Jesus can be traced everywhere. Why did the later church reject this connection? If Jesus and the apostles were familiar with the book of Enoch and used it, then why did the later institutional church reject it? According to researcher Margaret Barker from the University of Cambridge, the answer lies in the theological changes that took place after the 2nd century. The early church, deeply rooted in Second Temple era Judaism, naturally accepted texts such as the Book of Enoch. However, when Christianity became Hellenized and Romanized, it adopted a more Platonic and abstract philosophy. The detailed angelology, literal celestial journeys, and hybrid giants from the Book of Enoch seemed too fantastical and mythological for the new philosophical orthodoxy. In addition, the emphasis in the book on personal experience rather than on universal truths also did not correspond to this trend. The idea of direct communion with God and the mystical ascension of Enoch posed a threat to the institutional church's monopoly on interpretation. Gradually, this book found itself in the shadows, became an object of doubt, and was eventually banned. However, her influence on the New Testament remained indelible. Anyone who studies the Book of Enoch in the context of the Gospels can see the obvious connections between them. Jesus was not only familiar with the Book of Enoch, but also identified himself with the central messianic figure, the Son of Man. His teachings about judgment, the heavenly kingdom, and victory over evil spiritual forces are deeply rooted in Enoch's theology. To fully understand Jesus, we need to consider the context of the Book of Enoch. Without this context, we lose whole layers of meaning in Christ's words, and so we have come to the end of our journey. After studying the Book of Enoch, its history, its condemnation, its teachings, prophecies, and its connection to Jesus, we must ask the most important question: what does all this mean to us today? Do you feel like we've made an amazing journey today? From the angels who betrayed their heavenly mission to the giants who ruled the earth before the flood. From the forbidden knowledge that corrupted humanity to the visions of Enoch. From the divine judgment of the guardians to the prophecies that seem to be coming true in our generation. We also found out why this book was censored. It contained truths that threatened institutional control and promoted direct spiritual revelation. But now, a more important question arises, a question that concerns each of us personally. What will you do with this knowledge next? How do you use this information? The Book of Enoch is not intended for wide distribution. It was written, in his own words, for the chosen ones, those who will live in the day of great tribulation. This book was written specifically for the future generation who will discover these truths at the very moment when they are needed most. And this generation, quite possibly, is ours. We live in an era when religious institutions are being questioned more than ever before. Spiritual searches have become deeply personal and individual. Ancient texts that have remained hidden for centuries are coming to light again. They are being found, translated, and studied. Millions of people around the world feel that they have been lied to about the most fundamental truths. A real thirst for authentic, undistorted spiritual knowledge is growing in our hearts. Without intermediaries, without institutional filters and control programs, the Book of Enoch, The Awakening, is important not because it provides a definitive answer to all questions, but because it gives us back the lost keys, the ones that help us see the full picture. Let me share with you one personal observation. If you got to this point in the video, it's not an accident. There is already something in you that responds to these truths. Your spirit learns the hidden layers of knowledge that have been hidden from you for a long time. This recognition is not a rebellion, it is an awakening. This is the same spirit that once motivated people to receive answers directly from God, without priests or intermediaries. This is the same spirit that made the Essenes of Qumran carefully hide these scrolls in clay jars in caves and store them for almost 2,000 years. Today, the same spirit drives millions of people to ask questions, to dig deeper, to seek the truth for themselves. You are part of this great process, and the fact that you are watching this video now is already the first evidence of your spiritual awakening. What will you do with this knowledge? I am not encouraging you to turn away from your traditional faith. On the contrary, I ask you to dive even deeper into it, consider it with love, and ask all those questions that you were afraid to say out loud before. Because faith, which is afraid of doubt, is fragile, and faith, which has gone through a sincere search and trial, becomes alive and indestructible. The Book of Enoch is open to you right now. It has been translated into dozens of languages. This is no longer a secret text behind 7 seals. It is waiting for you to pick it up and read it yourself. And when you do, don't do it with fear or excessive skepticism. Open the heart of a true seeker. After all, the truth is never afraid of an honest investigation, and lies always need protection and censorship. Subscribe to our channel and don't forget to click the little bell so that no new revelation passes you by. In the next video, we will continue to discover the truths that have been hidden for centuries. If you really want to go further and deeper, consider becoming a member of our community. The Guardians of Truth are already gaining access to knowledge that we will never be able to show publicly. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. I'll see you very soon in the next issue. May the light of true truth always illuminate your path. Amen.